Now on Open Book, a fan favorite and one of my personal favorites, Brian Klaas. He is a political scientist and a writer for The Atlantic. He lives in the UK. He wrote a book called Fluke, Chance, Chaos, and Why Everything We Do Matters, which is a sort of amazing when I think about it. I think about all these little small things. And of course, over the holiday, Brian, I watched It's a Wonderful Life again and the wonderful butterfly effect of that movie. And you're writing about that in Life. And you had a very famous and well-timed book called Corruptible, which was fabulous as well. So I recommend that to all of our viewers and listeners. But we're now back with Fluke. Tell us about Fluke. Let's start with what kickstarted your thinking for this book, Brian, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So there's a few things. There's one is sort of my research, where I studied a coup at one point that happened a while ago, and you have all these models that try to explain why these things happen. And I interviewed this soldier, and he talked about trying to kidnap an army commander during the coup. And basically, it was a situation like straight out of a film where he grabbed like the pant leg of this guy and tried to grab him to kidnap him and force him to announce the coup. And basically, it was a split-second thing, right? He was a little bit too slow. The army commander got away. The coup failed. And you think, this was in Zambia, and Zambia's democracy almost ended on this span of a split-second change. So in my research, I came across this fairly often. In my own personal life, one of the things that I write about in the introduction is a story of a mass murder in Wisconsin in 1905. And I say my personal life because my great-grandfather's first wife unfortunately snapped and killed her 4 young children and then killed herself. And I put that in the book because I found that out in my mid-20s. And I realized that I wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for this. And quite literally, you wouldn't be listening to me if not for this sort of gruesome murder 119 years ago. And that's the way the world actually works, right? Like chaos theory is this thing where it shows how very small changes can have very profound effects. And, an action in Wisconsin in 1905 or a split second during a coup, our social world changes. And the pandemic is like that as well, right? You have one person getting infected with a virus in China and boom, the world completely changes. So the main argument of the book is that small changes can have enormous impacts and we systematically ignore them in how we sort of model the world.
See, when I read about the tragedy, my dad, who unfortunately we lost last year, but at a very nice old age of 88, his father was married and she died of ovarian cancer. And so he ended up getting remarried to what ultimately became my grandmother. And so you see, it happens in different ways. It can happen from different types of illnesses or health or whatever, but we're both here so improbably, right? If you think about all the dark matter in the universe, Brian, the fact that you and I are sitting here talking to each other, that should give us grace and be grateful enough. But everything, doesn't it happen for a reason, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where I think there's a saying that's very comforting to people. Everything happens for a reason, but it's in my view not true, right? I think there's a lot of philosophy what was really interesting about researching and writing this book was that when you start to think about how reality works and you start to think about all these interconnections and accidental changes and so on, it does have philosophical implications, right? And some people make sense of those through belief in God and other people don't. And I'm in the latter camp personally, but I respect people who have different viewpoints. I mean, my view is when you look at these things from a scientific perspective, like, the origin of complex life, the best explanation we have for that is what I think is the most important fluke of all time, where 2 billion years ago, a bacterium bumped into a prokaryotic cell, these tiny little cells, ended up inside of it and created mitochondria, which is the thing that powers complex life. And as far as scientists know, this happened once, right? And so, like, when I think about something like that, and, you can apply this logic to markets, to politics, whatever it is in the social world as well. But when I think about that, I think, look, I don't know, maybe there's just some stuff that happens. And I think that has some pretty profound and uplifting implications for how we think about our lives and the purpose of them, even without a grand design, as it were, or the idea that everything happens for a reason.
And you write about this, and you also write about, like, this is something Marcus Aurelius wrote about 1800 years ago. There's just so many choices; it's impossible for you to get everything right. And so, why be upset about that? Just forge forward and focus on the present. But you also write about a rewind, and there's a very fun book from the 1970s called Rewind, I think, or Replay. I'll get the title for you. But the guy wakes up in his dorm room, and he's able to now relive his life, but he has some knowledge, so he bets the stock market well. And guess what happens to him? A lot of things go wrong that he didn't expect, so he wants to rewind again. He does it 3 or 4 times, and then the moral of the story is, well, you know what? Guess what? You're living as a human being, and even with perfect knowledge, you're going to get a lot wrong. What do you think of the notion of rewinding your life, Brian?
Yeah, so that's the opening sentence of the book is if you rewound your life to the very beginning and then press play, would everything turn out the same? And it's a question about like why things happen to us, right? But what I think is really striking about this is you think about movies like Back to the Future, or you think about anything to do with time travel. We have this viewpoint that and there's all these short stories and Simpsons episodes that play with this idea where it's like, if you go back in the past, don't talk to anyone, don't touch anything because you might accidentally delete yourself from the future. And that seems totally intuitive to us. But the thing is, when you think about that, surely the way that the past causes the present is exactly the same as the way the present causes the future, right? In other words, if you talk to people in your daily life today, or if you squish the wrong bug today, it's going to create a different world, right? And I think one of the things that has happened is because the way that humans try to make sense of that complexity through modeling, right, which is basically always wrong but sometimes useful, we have this sort of funhouse mirror version of reality reflected back at us, where there's there's only 6 variables that you need to worry about, and as long as you tackle those 6 variables, everything will turn out fine. And I don't believe that's the way the world works, right? I mean, it's the same as, Nate Silver talks about the signal and the noise, which sometimes can be very useful in short-term, decision-making. But the idea that the noise is meaningless is just wrong to me. I think that there's a huge amount of history, politics, et cetera, where, the noise was actually the thing that drove it. And so the book is trying to suggest that if you have that level of uncertainty, because you can never measure the noise, right, then you need to sort of prioritize optimization slightly less and resilience slightly more, because you need to think carefully about catastrophe and how it might emerge from unexpected places.
I mean, so well said. The book that I was thinking of is called Replay by Ken Grimwood, and it was written in 1986. It's an obscure book now, but it was pretty famous 30 or so years ago. And I remember reading it, and I've made so many different mistakes in my life, who the hell knows? But the truth of it is, you're going to make them no matter what. That's the trials and tribulations of being human. What single strange interaction or random event, it's a little personal, but I want you to answer it, has had the biggest impact on your life?
Well, I mean, the one that I talked about early on in the book was certainly one of them. I mean, I think there's lots of stuff, it's like, I one of the things that we do as humans is we look back on our lives and we think about those big building blocks of those decisions. And these are the really obvious ones, right? So I think about the moment that I decided to go to grad school, because I decided to go to England for grad school. And here 13 years later, I'm still here and I'm going to become a British citizen and so on. And I thought I was signing up for
Are you doing okay with your accent though? Or they look down upon you as a former colonist? You're all right over there, or no? I'm just asking because
Well, it's funny because I think I still have exactly the same accent. I'm from Minnesota originally, but right. Every so often I go on MSNBC and people stop putting on the fake British accent. And I'm like, I really don't think I have an accent, but maybe my intonation.
I'm not picking it up. We had a clown that was the president of Tufts, and he was an Italian kid from Wilmington, Delaware, and he came back with a British accent. I'm like, dude, you got to calm down, okay? I mean, it's not working, I do say flat and so on rather than apartment, but it's just it's part of daily life. But I think this is fascinating because my producer's from the UK. She's living here in the US. You're from the US. You moved to the UK. You're going to become a UK citizen. Is that a dual citizenship, or are you going to give up the US citizen? dual
Yeah,
citizen. Well, good for you.
I passed the test a couple months ago. So you have to take a citizenship test. I passed that, and yeah, I'm on my way. So it's a couple weeks away, probably.
Was one of the questions who won the Revolutionary War? That probably wasn't on the citizenship test, right?
No, it was
Probably
one of
not.
those things. It was funny, actually. I mean, some of the questions were factually wrong. Like there was one question that was supposed to be stupidly easy, which was who first unified England? Was it Alfred the Great or Charles Darwin? And I actually am a history nerd, so I was like, it's Ethelwulf, Alfred the Great's grandson, but that's not one of the choices, and I didn't want to argue with the person. But the point is, yes, I've passed the test, and I think I'm doing all right. So
Yeah, right. You don't want to be too smart for your own good.
Yeah.
You got some brilliant insights into this thing. Okay, I am a snooze button smasher. Okay, and I probably hit that button. I say, oh no, another 9 minutes and another 9 minutes. Tell us about why hitting the snooze button has a pretty big impact on your life.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to draw, and it's part of the thing that I did in this book, was trying to synthesize lessons from science with how we can understand ourselves, right? And so there's this big debate in evolutionary biology about how change happens. I think this is really important for anyone who cares about markets, politics, whatever it is, in history, et cetera. And in evolution, there's this debate between what's called contingency and convergence. So the contingency stuff is where you make a small change and everything turns out different. So like the best example in evolution is the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, right? Because basically, if that hadn't happened, humans probably wouldn't have existed. Convergence is the opposite. It's like the ordered trajectory, right? And this is where like small changes happen, but like you end up in the same place in the end. And one of my favorite examples of this is if you look at the eye of an octopus and you look at the eye of a human, they're actually extremely similar. Even though we've evolved, 400 million years ago, we split on the evolutionary tree, like nature just solved the problem the same way because it works, right? And this is the same in human society. Like sometimes you have inventions that arrive at the same time. Now, I use this for what I call the snooze button effect to say, is your life going to follow the same track or is it going to radically diverge from this 5 minutes that you sleep, right? And we don't know. That's the point, right? Like we can never see the world in which our life had, sort of tested in the A world where it's like you didn't hit the snooze button, and then the B world where you did. But I think one of the things that is worth considering is that there are a lot of things that change with 5 minutes, right? You meet different people that day. You might get into a car accident or not. You might end up having someone say something to you that changes your thinking on a subject. And these are what I call the invisible pivots. So when I was answering your question before about, the sort of stuff that's important to me, probably I don't know. I mean, the answer is I probably don't know what the biggest thing that has been the fluke in my life because I'm just totally blind to it. Where maybe I almost died, or maybe I almost met someone of huge consequence, or something almost ruined my life, and I avoided it, and I'm just totally unaware of it because we can't go back. And I think that snooze button effect idea is one that is important to think about because it means that sort of the moment to moment stuff we do is actually important, even if we'll never see the alternative world we might inhabit.
It's fascinating because on a tragic note, a close friend of mine went to the Red Sox Yankee game on the 10th of September at Yankee Stadium. And unfortunately that night there was a thunderstorm and the game got interrupted in the third inning, a result of which he left Yankee Stadium, drove home, and got home early enough where he decided to take the 6 a.m. train into New York City to deposit himself on the 103rd floor of the World Trade Center. Had the game been played, had the weather not been rainy, he would have got home after midnight. He would have taken the 9 a.m. train as opposed to the 6 a.m. train, and he would be here. Of course, Howard Lutnick very famously took his son to kindergarten orientation, and so he wasn't in the office on the 11th of September, and so on and so forth. And so this is why I think your book is so fascinating. It gives us so much to think about. The guys from BlackRock, they came to see us at Skybridge, and we're lowly Skybridge, and they're very large BlackRock, but they wanted to launch a Bitcoin trust and convert it into their ETF. They had no outside investors, and their committee said, if you can't get an outside investor, we don't want to pursue it. And so anyway, make a long story short, we gave them the money. They ended up pursuing it. Looks like they're going to get this ETF alongside of others, but I think BlackRock's influence helped it. And again, I'm not patting Skybridge on the back. It's a incidental coincidence, but it fits so relevantly into your story. and the
I,
snooze button. Okay, I want
yeah,
to
I was
play
going to say
devil's.
about this. I have a
Please.
story in the book as well about 9/11, and it's an amazing story where basically this guy gets given a tie from a coworker who's really really kind to him at the breakfast on the morning of September 11th, and it turns out the new tie doesn't match his outfit. So he goes to iron a different shirt to put the tie on. Says, "I'll catch up with you in 15 minutes." She goes up to the conference and gets killed, and he survives. And it was a random act of kindness that saved his life, right? And she died having done that. And there's a deeper lesson here, as well as the sort of curiosities and tragedies that you can tease out from this. I mean, one of the points I always make is you mentioned the thunderstorm on September 10th, September 11th, blindingly blue sky. And you think about variables that we model, right? Like when we try to figure out why things happen, like you always come up with the big ideas, the big variables. And so we talk about Al Qaeda, right? All these things, the geopolitics. If there had been a thunderstorm on September 11th, it would have been a different story possibly, because you might have had some delays in the flights. Some of them might not have gotten off the ground at the same time. You might have had some that, if you had a different group of passengers on Flight 93, would they have stopped the attack? And I can tell you, the world would be different if the White House or the Capitol had been destroyed. And so you think, these little things of just switching the same event on a different time or a different place, and all of a sudden the world shifts. And I think there's this weird obsession for that idea you said before of how everything happens for a reason, that we want to sort of cram things into this neat and tidy story. The world's just really messy, right? And that's why we keep on getting these black swans walloping us and blindsiding us, because chaos theory in action means that if you try to tame the world by just focusing on like 6 or 7 variables in a model, it's not going to work.
It's brilliant, and I appreciate everything that you put in there, because it provides us perspective. And I'm glad you're on the show here in early January, because January is the season for this sort of contemplation. Let's talk a little bit about being a devil's advocate for a second. This is another thing you write about in the book. People may argue that there's a higher power and they have religious beliefs, and also there's the consideration of the laws of physics. What do you say about those topics?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not personally a believer, right? And I think there's something that you can appreciate even as a non-believer about the sort of mystical uncertainty of the world, right? And there's so many things we don't understand, and they're not like AI. They're things like, what is consciousness and what produces it? Like, we don't have an answer to that question. We don't understand how matter operates, because even though quantum mechanics has given us some tools to sort of study these things and to experimentally verify some predictions around them, none of us have any idea what's going on. I mean, there are a series of very smart physicists who believe in what's called the many worlds theory, which is that the world is infinitely branching into an infinite number of universes in which there's an infinite number of yous, and also an infinite number of worlds that don't contain you, right? Like, that should give us pause, where I think there's a certain level of sort of certainty that is foolish to have when you try to answer these big questions. But I think, one of the core questions that Fluke's trying to answer is sort of, it's probably what I would have titled the book if I wasn't trying to sell it, is why do things happen, right? I mean, like, when we try to think about our lives, when we try to think about, cryptocurrency, whatever it is, like, we're trying to answer that question of causality. And some people answer it with God, and some people answer it with the sort of more sterile forms of physics and so on. I give this what I think is the best scientific explanation for the dynamics that we see in modern society and how we got here and so on. But I'm also extremely respectful of people who have different views on this, because the hubris to say these are settled questions it's the symbol of a fool, because they're not settled, right? Even scientists are hyper aware of the limits of our understanding.
So I love it. That's why I asked you about it. Let's talk about the single man or the single woman theory in human history. We've had the likes of Lincoln, Churchill. America seems to get the right leader at the right time. It seems like once in a while we get the wrong leader. But generally we've been pretty lucky, whether it's a Roosevelt, Franklin, or Teddy, a Lincoln, a Reagan. Obviously the UK, the Brits had Churchill when they needed him. Does this stuff make a difference? And what are some of the things that you think caused the rise of Donald Trump that were butterfly-like, that were, I mean, I think I can think of some, but give me some of the flukes. So question one, do you believe in that theory?
Yeah.
And then question two, how the hell did we get Donald Trump? And obviously, I'm partially to blame for that. But how the hell did we get him, and how the hell did we get rid of him?
Well, on the second one, I'll let you off the hook with some of the flukes that you were definitely not responsible for. But on the first question, I mean, look, political science, for example, my discipline for a long time basically tried to have this sort of savvy viewpoint of saying, oh, it's the presidency that matters, right? The president is constrained, like the institution is what matters, not the person. Like, leave the cable TV host to write the biographies of Lincoln. We understand the real way that this works with the institution. Donald Trump obliterated that. I mean, nobody thinks that the world would be the same place if Hillary Clinton won in 2016. I mean, it's an absurd viewpoint, right? So obviously it's the case that individuals in positions of power matter enormously for reshaping the world. Now, for how we got Trump, I mean, there's all the sort of standard explanations, but I'll go for the flukes. So there's two of them that come to mind. One of them, and I don't know whether this is true, but it's a hypothesis, is that Trump was swayed or potentially influenced by deciding to run for president in 2011 at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, when he was humiliated by Obama telling that joke. But the one that I talk about in the book that I think is a fun and interesting way of thinking about history is, believe it or not, there's a link between Trump's defeat in 2020 and the Cretaceous period when velociraptors were on the Earth. And the reason I say that is because that many million years ago, there was an inland sea on what is now the United States. And the coastline was basically Georgia, what is now Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, right? And the phytoplankton that lived on the coastline of that ancient inland sea during the time of the dinosaurs, all the phytoplankton died as the sea dried up. And they gave this super, super fertile soil, what was then known as the Black Belt, because it's really dark, rich soil made from this phytoplankton. This is where, when slaves were brought to the United States, enslaved people were brought to those areas where that inland sea was. And if you look at the 2020 election map, county by county, what you will see, because African Americans tend to vote more for Democrats than Republicans, is you will see the map of that inland sea is why Donald Trump lost Georgia. Because you can actually map it on the coastline, and it corresponds almost perfectly, because this sort of geological accident, tens of millions of years ago, having an impact on the demographic patterns of American society today and affecting our elections. It's an extraordinary thing where the more you look for this stuff, the more you find these bizarre accidents of history that end up
amazing. This is why I want people to read your book, because there's a fragility to chance. There's a fragility to life, of course. And, it's amazing. But listen, there's one other thing that did happen is President Obama asked Vice President Biden to stand down. He had cut a deal with the Clintons in 2012, their support in exchange for him clearing the way for her candidacy in 2016. And so Biden did stand down. There was that very famous speech in the Rose Garden where he was going on and on. Had he not stood down, he may have beaten her in the primaries, and I don't think there would have been a Donald Trump, because he would have beat him like a drum, like he did in 2020. All right, we're at the point in the program. I've come up with 5 words for all my famous authors after reading their books. I'm gonna say the word. You think of something. You tell us what it is. Okay, you ready? Chance.
Chance is a contingent event that could have turned out otherwise, and it's usually for an arbitrary or random reason.
Chaos.
Chaos is the theory that small changes over time can have enormous effects. And the subset of this is the butterfly effect, the idea that a butterfly flapping its wings in Texas can cause a hurricane somewhere else.
Contingency.
Contingency is those pivot points in life where basically our world teeters between two possible options, and the contingent event is the one that diverts us between the two.
Consequences.
Consequences are where contingent events matter, right? So some contingencies are relatively meaningless, at least over the short term. Others completely upend our world.
What about the word fluke?
This is a difficult one because it captures a lot. It's usually defined as a positive, and I don't use it exclusively that way, but it's a random or chance or arbitrary occurrence that has outsized effects on the world. And very often people use it as a positive. There are flukes, I think, that can also have seemingly positive consequences that turn very bad later. So I use it in the broadest possible sense.
Well, listen, I find you to be fascinating. You're wickedly smart. And when is the next book? I've got to get it on my calendar. You thinking about something?
Yeah, but like I'm in the brainstorming phase. I mean, one of the things you do as a writer is you kick around 10 ideas and you basically convince yourself they're all bad. So I'm in that stage where I don't have a good idea yet. But this one is out January 23rd.
All right. Well, when I get to the UK, I'd love to buy you a beer or a warm beer. I mean, these people drink warm beer. It's hard to understand, but it's fine. It seems like you're very comfortable over there. I do love the UK. For whatever reason, they get my sense of humor over there, so I enjoy being there. But God bless you. The title of this book is Fluke. Fluke, Chance, Chaos, and Why Everything We Do Matters. And you are a lovely man, and good luck with your new citizenship in this great new country that you've spent 13 years in. God bless.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so joining us now on Open Book is Madison Malloy. She's an author, a producer, she's a podcaster, and she's out with a great book. She's also a comedian, by the way. She does great stand-up comedy. You can see it in the book. The book is titled Time to Lighten the Fuck Up. See, we actually curse on Open Book, Madison. I know you put the little asterisk in there, but it's Time to Lighten the Fuck Up, a self-help guide with a side of humor. Okay, Madison, last time I interviewed you, you were on Mooch and the Misses. It was me and Deirdre Scaramucci. You only have me today.
Yep.
What do you think? Can I handle Madison Malloy, or am I being overpowered now?
I think you can handle it. I like the T-shirt. I like that you got the coffee. I got my coffee too.
I'm sporting my Empire State Building. I went to the Empire State Building with the kids on a field trip. I got myself a coffee mug. See that?
Hey, I like it.
Tell me about. Let's start with Madison Malloy. How does Madison Malloy enter the world of show business? And then let's talk a little bit about your stand-up comedian-ness, if you will, and then let's talk about this book.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I originally moved to New York because I wanted to be a Wall Street titan. And when I got there, I realized, well, this probably really isn't for me. I didn't know about the whole corporate America thing. Just wasn't feeling it. So I decided I'm going to follow my passion and decided to start telling jokes. And I didn't realize that following your dream, although there's a lot of positives, that there'd be a lot of negatives as well. So
what are the negatives? Let's start with some of the negatives. What are the negatives?
Well, the negatives are, I don't think anyone's as realistic as they need to be of how long it's actually going to take. And having somewhat of a backup plan so you can make sure that you stay financially abundant. Because when you start to worry about money, everything else starts to fall apart. So you got to be realistic about it, and you really got to have a game plan. That's what I tell anyone going into the arts or going into anything is have a game plan and always have a source of income coming in. Because once you lose that, everything else can go down. Your confidence, which you absolutely need, and just your overall mindset. And that was something that happened to me in comedy. Although I was having the time of my life, making people laugh, there were so many struggles that were going on behind the scene, which ultimately then led to the creation of my book, because I was able to get out of my own way and finally start being in the right mindset to bring in amazing opportunities.
Well, okay, it makes sense to me. I am a Wall Streeter. I happen to like it, so but some people don't like it, and I get that. I'm certainly not a politician, as evidenced by my ill-fated career. But you like what you do. You are in the soup of these things. Yeah. And so even though you've had these trials and tribulations, the quest, the goal, the journey, the destination is way more important. Isn't that the right messaging, or no?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think you have to be passionate about what you do. You have to love it, and you have to kind of really know that you're on the right path. For me, it's all about inspiring people to live their best life. So that is through my books, through TV shows I create, through my podcast. So I know I'm on the right mission, because when I wake up in the morning, it's not, it's Monday. It's Monday. I can't wait to see what opportunities this week brings. And that was like a telltale sign that I'm definitely on the right path.
So comedians, in my estimations, have some darkness to them. Jim Carrey's a little dark. Robin Williams a little dark.
Yeah.
Bill Maher, my buddy, dark. Too much pot smoking, dark. But not you. you're always like bright and sunny. So I'm trying to figure that out. How did you become a bright and sunny comedian in a world of like semi-dark comedians?
Yeah, I think it's comedians typically get that reputation, and in order to get through pain, laughter is a great way to do it. So it's kind of like a natural medicine. But no, I grew up in a great household, and I think my pain was self inflicted. So yes, I did have pain, and it was great to be on stage to get that out. But a lot of it was just not having confidence, low self worth, not thinking I was good enough. Um, Insecurities for whatever reasons there were. So there was some darkness and times that I fell into my own kind of mental health issues with anxiety and depression. But I wouldn't say I was more of an optimistic person, and I always tried to be that way. I think it's just the way I was.
Okay. But you were at Nomura,
Yeah.
not doing so well, according to the book. Not doing well, but I mean, you were miserable.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you were miserable. I mean, you were doing well. I mean, you're great at what you do, of course, but you know what I mean? You were like
Yeah.
mentally like, I got to get the hell out of here. And so you knew at that point you had to start, quote unquote, lightening up. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so no, Nomura was a great experience, and I still keep in touch with a lot of people I worked with there, and that was amazing. But I was a fixed income bond trader, and I started right as the financial crash was kind of starting to bubble up, and was there when it happened. So I was, very knowledgeable on what went down in the last financial crisis because I was quote unquote part of it. And, seeing, so that was a dark side. I witnessed basically when I stepped in, I witnessed the glitz and the glamour of Wall Street and all the fun that came with it. And then I started witnessing the dark sides of people that were totally over leveraged and started, um, you know, losing houses, taking their kids out of school. And it was kind of a wake up call that this was not, I wasn't happy, and that anything can be taken from you at any moment. And so it's important to do what you love and be passionate about what you do and have integrity, because that can't be taken away from you.
I think it's very well said. So you got hard truths in this book,
Yeah.
Madison, cold, hard truths.
Yeah.
So let's go over them. Give me some cold, hard truths for my podcast listeners.
Well, I talk about fear in one of the chapters, and I think that's a big thing that holds us back. I mean, you and I have had the conversation. I think I even referenced you a little bit in the book without mentioning your name, of the fear of what other people think. And so many people are held back by that fear. And some people will say, well, I don't really care, but they do, because they're not taking the chances and the risk. I remember you and I had a conversation. We were saying, everybody has that little fear of what people think. But then when your name is absolutely dragged through the mud, it's the best way to get through the fear. So you just kind of have to step into it and have faith and realize that nobody really thinks that much about any of us at all. They're
I
worried
think
about
that
themselves.
I think that's one of the most revelatory things that I have come across in my life. If I could offer any advice
Yeah.
to a younger person, when we're young, we think other people are thinking about us. When we get to our careers and we get so ambitious, we're like, okay, what is someone going to think of my career if I'm at a cocktail party and I talk to them? And then, oh my God, my name has just been plastered in lights very negatively. Or if you're like me, I've been parodied on Saturday Night Live. Okay, think about that. Okay. And so then you say to yourself, is that a disaster or not? And by the way, I'm a very honest person, as you know. And so I went through the cycles of all of those things and all of those beliefs that it is a disaster, but it really isn't a disaster. And so that's the number one resonating message I would say to young people. What other people think about you is none of your business. The sooner you learn that, the more rewarding, the more fun your life will be. I mean,
Yeah.
they write about me all the time. I think they write a negative article about me every 3 or 4 weeks. I'm like, oh, okay, not a big deal like it used to be. What say you to all that?
What was that?
No, what do you say to all that? What's your response to my reflection on this? You agree with
No,
me?
I absolutely agree with you. I think it's perfectly said, because the truth of the matter is, no matter what you do, what you say, how you feel, somebody's not going to like you. So just being confident. And obviously, like you and I are older now, so it's easier when you're talking to somebody who's in their early 20s where they're still kind of developing, and peer pressure is a big thing and what their peers think is a big thing. You try to get through to them that none of this really matters and that you should only focus on what you can control. And what you can't control is other people's opinions. Unless of course you're a straight up asshole, then that's a different story. But if you're just, doing your thing and having a good time and doing what's best for you and not hurting anyone, then who gives a shit what they think? And the truth of the matter is, this, the more successful you become, the more people that are going to hate you for no apparent reason. So would you rather be really well liked and just, behind a computer desk where nobody knows you and not making an impact because you're afraid of what people think? Or would you rather not be so well liked by people that don't know you, but have an amazing life that's creating an impact? Well, I would choose the knowing, having an impact and just letting go of what people think.
Talk about conquering fear.
Yeah.
And some of it is our internal feelings, some of it is from our upbringing, some of it is from our financial situation. Take us through the process of creating the freedom that you describe in the book and overcoming fear.
So I think obviously what fear is it is the anxiety of the unknown, right? We're fearful of things that we don't know if it's going to happen or not. That's what we're fearful of. Because if it actually happened, we would know exactly how we would react to it, how it would go. We wouldn't be so fearful of it. So most of our fears are not necessarily fears of like heights or driving fast on the highway or any of those. It's irrational fears. And those are the fears that hold us back. And one of the fears we just talked about was what people think about you. What would happen if you ran out of money? What would happen if your business failed? These are all irrational fears because they haven't happened yet. And all they're doing is holding you back. So I always say, like, a good way to let go of the fear is to step into faith and have faith that it's going to work out. So instead of when you go, oh, am I going to have enough money? Well, that's a low vibrational mindset that's going to keep you broke. You should just say, I am always going to have enough money and it always works out in my favor and this business is going to work out and you're going to start seeing more opportunities and letting go of that fear. So whenever I get fearful about stuff, because we all do, you just got to step into faith and switch the thought process and the words, because your words have so much power. Say, what if it all worked out? What if I had more money than I ever knew what to do with? And it really makes a huge difference. I mean, I'm proof of it. I literally lived paycheck to paycheck for years and years and years. And I struggled and I struggled. And I have this resting rich face. So nobody thought I was struggling. So it's hard when nobody can have compassion for you. But my mindset and my language sucked ass. It was always worrying about money, not thinking there'd be enough money, thinking I would fail at something. And when those things switched, everything switched.
It's interesting. There was a one of my old bosses, now in his 80s. He had this great plaque on his desk. Unfortunately, I should have gotten a copy of it. I can only paraphrase it, but like, do the things in life that you want to do with the assumption that you're not going to fail. So meaning what holds a
Yeah.
lot of people back is, okay, I want to be a movie star, or I want to be a this, or I want to be a that, but I'm afraid to do it because I'm afraid of the self-consciousness of failing. And if you just let yourself go, things start happening. Les Moonves, I mean, he's had a rough time now, but Les Moonves was an actor. It worked out okay for him, but not great. But he went on to become an unbelievable television executive. And obviously,
Yeah.
he had his issues, so they canceled him. But my point being is, if you just put yourself into the flow, good things start to happen, one way or another. I
Yeah.
can't tell you when I left law school and joined Goldman Sachs that I thought my career would have unfolded the way it did. Some of it has been great, Matt. Some of it has been shitty. I mean, it's been a combination of things, but it's truly been wonderful. I've been very blessed to have this
Yeah.
eclectic experience. Had I not had the guts to push myself, I probably wouldn't be able to have done so many different things,
Yeah. You took
whether it's television, jumping out of helicopters,
Yeah.
or visiting people in Iraq during the war, or doing conferences, building a hedge fund business, and so forth. Um, you you talk about chilling out. Okay, so I always use Mel Brooks's line that relax, none of us are getting out of here alive. And so, why is it worth worrying? Like, why do people worry? And why is it worth worrying? I'm not saying that I don't worry, but I always try to put it into the category. There's really nothing I can do about it anyway. So let me just do the best I can given the facts and circumstances.
Yeah, and worry is a big thing, and a lot of people now, especially in our economy, are worried about things. But I always say, like, if you're really, really worried, make a list of the things you can control and the things you can't control, and then fix the things you can control and forget about the things you can't, because you're just going to put yourself in a miserable situation. And as Bob Proctor said, like attracts like. So the thoughts that you're putting out there, you're just going to attract more that you need to worry about. But one of the greatest things I always tell people too is, if you're worried about what people think or you're fearful of something, is literally close your eyes and picture yourself on your deathbed. And you have like 5 minutes left to live. What are all the regrets that you have? And really think about those and then write them down, because it's going to be the stuff that you worry about or you were fearful about, or that you didn't take that chance because of those two things. Those are the things you absolutely need to be doing, because one day when it's over, because it's going to end for all of us, you don't want to live a life of regrets. You don't want to be on a deathbed saying, I wish I had done this. I wish I didn't worry so much. I wish I didn't have so much fear. You want to be on your deathbed saying, this was a great run. I'm ready for the next adventure.
All right, so talk about this great run, Madison. What are we doing now? Tell me about the life of Madison Malloy, and what are we doing right now? What's getting you up and excited in the morning?
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of different stuff, creating reality shows, as you know. I'm working on actually a fictional book series that's going to be coming out later this summer. I'm working on my next self-help book that I'm hoping to release at the end of the year or the beginning of 2024, which is one of the chapters in my book. I won't give it away, but it's a whole book on one of the topics that really resonated with a lot of people. I'm also working in kind of self-help and development now, from taking my own expertise and helping people live their best lives in their abundance. Um, Investing in different companies. So life is good. I feel that I always tell people, never pick one job title and have that job and say, I am this. You can do everything. As you know, you run a company, but you're on TV. You are constantly, diving into the blockchain area. You are one of those people that, if it's opportunity and it makes money and it makes you happy, you can do it. You can do everything that you want to do. So that's for me. When people come at me and they say, hey, here's an opportunity, I don't say, well, I only do X, Y, and Z, because I don't want to box myself in. If it's a great opportunity, well, yep, I'm going to add it to the list, because you can do anything you want.
I think it's so well said, and I think if we don't break out of like the boxes that we sometimes self-impose, it's
Yeah.
it's doing ourselves a disservice. So, talk about Botox for a second, because I love Botox. Okay.
I just got my Botox, so thank
Yeah.
God I did, because
Let
I
me
let
see.
it all
Can you
work.
let me see
I
any
let it,
facial
well, it
expressions?
hasn't kicked in yet.
All right, so you got a
Um,
little wiggle going on. So,
I let it
that
all wear off,
I'm
all of
not
it.
totally comfortable with the whole Botox. I mean, people saying to me, "Oh my God, your forehead is like a sheet of glass." I'm like, hey, I paid a lot for this for it. Why is that a bad thing to use Botox? Is it a bad thing? I don't think so. It
No,
makes
well,
you
for
feel younger. I
guys,
mean,
yeah.
you don't look as tired when you use it. What's the big deal?
Yeah, I don't think there's a big deal at all. So for men, they're calling it Brotox. I'm sure you've heard about that. So instead of
Yes.
Botox, they call it Brotox.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's, if you want to do something that's going to make yourself feel better, so you have the confidence to accomplish your goals, then that's what you do. There's women I know who do not do Botox, but they are extremely confident. So I applaud them as well. But if you want to do Botox because it makes you feel better, look better,
Yeah.
then
There's
why
a
not? And somebody also said that it can actually improve your mood, because if you get your 11s in the middle
Right.
of your eyes, Botox, you can't frown as much. And there's like a subconscious thing when you're looking at
Yeah,
yourself and
maybe. I
you're
mean,
like
it's
have
not.
an
I
angry
mean,
face.
there's also Paulina Paraskova just wrote a book called, I think, Unfiltered or Filter Free or something like that. It's a great book. I try to get her on my podcast. She's
Yeah,
57,
she looks
beautiful
great.
woman, no
Yeah.
Botox, all natural. So she's gone in the opposite direction. And again, I no judgment there either. I mean, God bless. I just decided that I'm totally okay pinning my face back the way Joan Rivers once did. And see, you're laughing about it
Wait,
because it's just so brutally honest, right? What makes good
no, I
comedy, man?
like it.
What makes good comedy? Doesn't honesty make good comedy?
Honesty and vulnerability.
Yeah,
Like most men would not go on and say, "Hey, I've got a bunch of Botox in my face." They wouldn't.
right,
They would
right,
get just enough to minimize it and be like, "No, I'm all natural. What are you talking about?"
right,
You know,
right,
I'm
right.
not I'm not a
My wife likes to
metrosexual.
tease me. She didn't realize that 8 or 9 years ago I was dyeing my hair. Okay, and I'm like, how could you not have realized that? I'm 455 years old. I mean, of course I'm dyeing my hair. I'm just happy that it's still here. But
You
that
got
is
a
real
ton
hair.
of hair.
Yeah, that's an Italian Chia pet. I got lucky with that. But
Yeah.
okay, so we talked about the following things last time. Okay, you ready? We talked about spray tans,
Yep.
boobs,
Yep.
balls,
Yep.
flatulence. Okay. So where should we take things next? Or should we go back to those topics?
I guess we could go back to those topics. It's a lot of people getting. It's interesting when you talk about boobs. There's a whole thing about people taking all their implants out because apparently it's making people sick. But then there's a whole slew of people getting breast implants in. So it's a whole. I think it just goes back to don't worry what people think. Do what's best for you. If you want to have a giant rack, well, God bless you. And I'm sure the men will say thank you as well.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It doesn't matter to me,
Yeah.
whatever people want to do. You go into this in the book. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. What did you mean by that?
Well, we are. We criticize ourselves more than anyone would ever criticize us. Think about it. I mean, maybe not you because everybody's always criticizing you. But for somebody
Why
that's
do you why do you think they go after me so hard? What do you think it is?
I think they're jealous.
You think that's what it is?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of it's rooted in jealousy.
And just so
Absolutely.
people are just they don't like the fact that I'm just so unabashed. They want to smack me in the face a little. Right.
Yeah, they're like
Right.
you got your head of hair, full head of hair, you're a good-looking guy, you're successful, you got a hot wife, you got a beautiful family. Of course, they want to be you and they can't be you. So, what's the other thing they can do to make themselves feel better? Well, they're going to bash you.
Okay. All right.
It
Well,
really
that's
is
you're
rooted in
see, you're
that.
better than my therapist. I should be hiring you. It's spending these millions of dollars on my head being shrunk by my
Yeah.
team of therapists. You see that?
No, you should. I always thought therapy is great. I don't do therapy,
No, I don't.
but
I actually don't do therapy. I was just making a joke.
yeah.
I self therapize by getting my ass in the gym.
Yeah, exactly. So therapy is great for a lot of people, but I like talking to people and lifting my friends up, or when people need help, they reach out because I feel like the therapists, they're great, but they go to school and they're trained and they're kind of have these like box answers, right? And these questions, and they're just talking about your past where you have somebody like me who's been through the trenches. I'm just going to give it to you straight. And because I'm not licensed, I don't have to have a license to lose. I can
Mhm.
actually kick the shit out of you
Right.
verbally
Right.
and get you on the right track. That's why I
Mhm.
always say, maybe it's not a therapist you need. Maybe you just need a mentor that's going to beat the shit out of you and tell you exactly what you need to hear, which
Right.
is, yeah, okay, here's your childhood trauma past. All right, let's get over that. Okay.
Right.
Let's move past that. Let's figure out where we need to heal and let's move forward because the reality is every single person, and this is a hard truth, but everyone has to accept it. Your life as it is today, the good, the bad, everything is a result of your thinking.
Right.
It sounds
I'm with
crazy,
you.
but it
And
is 100% true
I wish I had learned that earlier. You got to forgive your parents for whatever they did, right or wrong.
because
They
they're
were probably just
human.
trying their best,
Yeah.
unless they were hitting you with a battle axe. Okay.
Right.
And number two, you gotta forgive yourself. You've made mistakes in life. What the hell? Who
Yeah.
hasn't made mistakes? And then the third thing is that so maybe you're not the uh, cover of Forbes, Fortune, Sports Illustrated, Bathing Suit Edition, Success Magazine entrepreneur. Who cares?
Yeah.
In our country, you can just have an amazing life. You don't have to have those quote unquote totems. And so why not just relax and enjoy your life and enjoy the process of your life? Doesn't mean you don't try hard, and swing for the fences. But don't judge yourself by the outcomes. Judge yourself by the work, by the effort. That's what I tell people. Who cares?
Yeah. And if
All right,
things
let me
don't
let
always
me
like go exactly your way, there was a lesson in it. So there's always, as Tony Robbins said, life's happening for you. It's not happening to you. To you is a victim mentality. For you is like, okay, this is
no
teaching me
question.
something and making me grow. It's all
Right.
up to us. I mean, if you have a shitty life, it's probably because you have shitty thinking.
Well, there's no question. I mean, so forgive your parents is number one.
Yeah.
Number two, no victimization, no self-pity. Shut the hell up. Get up, get back up to work. You know what I mean?
And
Particularly if
take,
you're born in the United
yeah,
States and you've got a chance at success, shut the hell up. All right. So
yeah.
every one of my authors, I have 5 words that I present to them at the end of a podcast.
Okay.
And then they're supposed to react to these words. And so it could be a minute, it could be a word, it could be whatever you decide. Ready? Let's start with our 5 words. You ready, Madison
I'm
Malloy?
ready.
Confidence.
Key to success. Absolutely.
Key to success. Risk.
Another key to success. You've got to take the risk and you've got to have the confidence. It's ultimate belief in yourself.
All right. So you got to confidence and risk go together, right?
Yeah.
Tunnel vision.
Something that'll keep you stuck.
Right. So
Get
don't
out
have
of
tunnel vision, right?
No, because tunnel vision it doesn't allow you to see the other opportunities that could be coming in. You set
Mhm.
yourself just on a straight thing, and if you don't get that, then you're miserable, and you don't see all the other opportunities that can come in. I mean, when I started, I was a comedian, I was an actress. I thought that's what I was doing. That was the only path I was taking. Had I had tunnel vision, I wouldn't have seen all the other opportunities that were coming at me, and that's where my success came from. Wasn't from what I originally thought I'd be doing.
How about rejection?
God's protection.
Tell me why.
Well, sometimes we take rejection personally because everybody wants to be validated and wants to be accepted. And when somebody tells you no, you think you take it personally, but maybe God's protecting you because something better is out there for you. A better
Right. So
job, a better friend, a better romantic partner, whatever it
Right.
is.
Right. So rejection, not so bad. Feels bad in the beginning, but might be okay in the end, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's
Okay.
actually a great thing because it's one of those like knocking on open doors to try to get them to open. The more no's you get, the closer you are to the door that is going to open. I love rejection.
Judgment.
Something that we do too much to ourselves.
Right. Don't be so judgy-wudgy of yourself, right? Don't be so hypercritical, right?
Well, when they also say when you're too judgmental of yourself, you're probably too judgmental of others and vice versa.
Right. Right.
You don't know somebody's
I'm
story,
with you on
so
that.
stop
Yeah,
judging
I'm
them.
with you on that. I don't like judging people.
Yeah, and you get judged a lot, so you know how it feels.
Yeah, but listen, it's a 1 to 5 second bum out. I read it up and then go on to the next thing. But
Yeah,
I don't like judging people. I don't, I had these Bloomberg reporters that were bashing me, and I said, okay. And then they wanted to come to my conference, and some people on my staff were like, oh no, you gotta, they can't come to the conference. I'm like, relax. I'm a big believer in the freedom. But let them come to the conference. I don't give a shit. I mean, that's the
yeah.
point. You got to just handle yourself with aplomb. What would you do differently if there was one thing that Madison Malloy could do over? What is that? I know what it is for me. I'll tell you mine, but you have to tell
Yeah.
me yours.
Okay. Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Do differently. Gosh, I want to say I would have believed in myself from the start, and I
More
would have
self-belief.
taken and I would have taken more chances and more risk romantically. I had no problem taking chances and risk in my career, but when it came to romance, no.
So give me an example. So you were dating somebody that you broke up with, what happened? Go ahead,
Yeah,
talk.
I think you get hurt and sometimes you get hurt so bad that when you finally get over it, you say, why would I ever do that again? It's like eating meatloaf when you're 5 and you get food poisoning. You never eat meatloaf for the rest of your life, right? So it's weird. Hangovers and romance. Somehow we just keep going back for more torture. But I think I would have, uh, taken my own advice now and probably maybe have met the person by now. I don't know. but I
But
didn't take enough chances.
is there a guy out there that you blew off that you regret blowing off?
Not that I blew off, no. One that I regret, meeting at the wrong time. It
Okay.
was the right person at the wrong time. I mean, luckily, we're still friends and we have a great relationship that way.
Right.
But yeah, but sometimes I just realize that, maybe that wasn't God's plan for me. And
I
I'm
gotcha.
not miserable and I'm happy. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, well, that's great too. And what's
No.
yours?
Well, I have one main one, and that is, it's Skybridge related, frankly. I should have never put the business up for sale in 2016 into 2017 because,
Yeah.
and that just was a mistake, flat out, because I went to go work in the White House. I thought it was the right thing to do to put it up for sale pursuant to the ethics laws. And I missized that whole thing. I had plenty of time to unravel that. And I didn't understand that at the time. And so that was some naivete and lack of experience on my part. And it hurt the firm. I mean, just to be totally candid. I mean, the firm is fine now, and we're having a great year this year and so forth. But it did set the firm back unnecessarily, and that was bad decision making on my part. And it was born from expedience, and I would say almost a level of impetuousness that I didn't have to have at the time. I
Yeah.
needed to probably talk to more people about the process. And so sometimes I tell people, slow it down a little. You're making a
Hmm.
big monumental decision. It's okay to get more input, and it
Yeah.
also, with your health, get something wrong with you health wise. It's okay to go to one doctor, but it's okay to think about like what the Mayo Clinic would do. They would go to 20 doctors. That's why the Mayo Clinic became so
Yeah.
famous. They're going to a neurologist and a pulmonary guy and a, you know, kinesics guy, whatever it is, to look at the whole body
Yeah.
before they make an opinion on you. And I think you have to do that more sometimes with big, big decision making. I didn't do that.
Yeah. But you learned from it.
Yeah, you learn from it. Exactly. That's all. But you
Yeah.
learn from it. Here's the other thing, the millstone of regret. You let it go. I don't go back. I don't kick myself in the pants for that. I don't kick myself in the pants for being fired from the White House. You go forward. I think that's the coolest thing about your book. The title of this book, Time to Lighten the F Up. See, I didn't say the F bomb this time. Time to Lighten the F Up. A self help guide with a side of humor from Madison Malloy. Looking forward to your future and congratulations on the book. And thank you
Yeah.
for joining us on Open Book today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. No, I was so excited to do this show. I'm a big fan of it. Keep up the great work. I love the guest. And I think you're doing remarkable stuff. So keep it up.